This is Teen Quest Live, where we create online conversations about youth culture, parenting, and issues facing youth workers in today's world. Our host, Mark Witt, has served as a pastor and youth pastor in multiple churches, and he's the founder and director of Teen Quest, a youth ministry that creates peak experiences for youth groups and teenagers through camping, events, missions, and evangelism. Welcome to Teen Quest Live.
Hey, there's a group of people in our world today I call Tweenagers. They're not little children anymore, and they're not teenagers. They're giving up their childhood toys for designer clothes and CDs and whatever. The Tweenager is a tremendous transition as puberty is taking place. My guest today is Sarah Madden. Sarah, good having you, youth director of Free Methodist Church in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. Sarah, it's good having you with us today.
Well, thank you for having me on here.
Hey, let's define a Tweenager. How would you define you work with, we call Tweenagers, but they're, I don't know, what else are they called? Let's talk about it in a minute. Let's define it.
Some schools it's junior high. Some people, it's the ones that everybody wants to go put in a corner because they're all hyper, but they need God's love too.
Right. Those, what is it, 10, 11, and 12-year-olds, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, yeah?
Yeah, at our church it is.
And they have a unique characteristic about them. They're wonderful little children, but they have some really unique characteristics. So let's talk about those characteristics for a moment because I'm going to make some statements, and you tell me if I'm correct. Okay. Tweenagers like extremes. They like extreme fads. Like extreme anything, and they're into that, whether they're guys or girls. They like to color their hair weird colors. They like to do all kinds of crazy extreme things.
I would say with the Tweenagers I've worked with, yes. They definitely like to do experimenting, extreme things because they're trying to figure out who they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes those extreme things get them in trouble, but they really like that. Another statement I'm going to make: Tweenagers, those 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, love heroes. Those girls are worshiping. Was it Justin Bieber? Mm-hmm. And those kind of people. They're just head over heels over these certain people, and they like heroes. What do you think?
Oh, I think definitely. I know the girls here are obsessed with One Direction.
Okay, One Direction.
Boy band from England,
Right.
They're trying to find people to emulate, to imitate all the time. Mm-hmm. And if it's a big star and that's somebody that they want to be like, that's what they do.
Right. Mm-hmm. Another statement: Tweenagers, those 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, develop crushes on if they're girls, older men.
I'd say they tend to. They also do have crushes on the boys their age, but then the boys their age tend to think they're gross. So they move on to the older kids.
Right. So we could probably say, those things are correct, those extremes, those heroes, those crushes, those things that they have, especially the girls. Here's a couple of questions I want to ask you. Should parents allow their 4th, 5th, and 6th graders to hang out with older teenagers? Older teenagers can get themselves in a lot of trouble. They can do some really stupid things too. But should you let them hang out with the older teenagers?
I think that oftentimes is something where parents need to use a lot of discretion. Don't just let them hang out with the 15-year-olds from youth group just because they're in youth group. Mm-hmm. I would, make sure that you hang out with them and the older teens way before you would let them hang out with them alone. Because some of the older kids are a great influence, but others may not be, and you won't know until you spend time with them.
Okay, we talked about extremes. Should parents allow their Tweenagers to get their hair dyed purple or green or orange or whatever, like so extreme? Should they allow them to do that?
Well, a lot of times I think that is an individual thing on parents on whether they want to. I know that some of the kids here want to dye their hair those colors, And
Okay, what about a tattoo? Should they get a should a parent allow their fifth grader to get a tattoo?
I wouldn't let a kid that young get a tattoo. Mostly because they do things in extremes, and if you do something permanent, let them do something permanent to their bodies when they're this age. Who knows what it's going to be, and if they're going to regret it later, and leave lasting scars. I mean, could be emotionally, physically, whatever. So no, I wouldn't encourage anyone to get their 4th or 6th or 7th grader a tattoo.
What about going to the movies and R-rated movies and those kind of things? I mean, these kids want to do extreme. Should we allow them to go to those places that are maybe questionable or extreme? I know TV, the media has tremendous influence on kids. Should parents allow them to do those things?
Just a clarification question: are you asking by themselves, or even with people?
Maybe with friends.
Okay. I mean, for the most part, I would say no, because they are so impressionable at this age that if in this movie, let's say, we were talking about tween girls earlier, how, they go with crushes and fads. Let's say in this movie, they make a very big statement about what love is, and it's more lusting after what you want. They're going to believe it because they're very impressionable. Especially if they're with a group of friends and they're excited about it and they think it's great, they will follow that definition unless someone tells them otherwise. So I would say no.
So here you are, you're a parent, or your parent comes, a parent in your youth group, you're the youth leader of your church, of course, and you have a 5th grade parent who says, Sarah, what do I do? My daughter wants to go out with all her friends. They're going to go to this movie, and it's not a good movie at all, and she wants to go, and I told her no. And she says, you're being unfair, and you're being like a terrible mom, and you don't care about me, you don't love me, blah, blah, blah. And I want to go to this movie, and what do I tell my daughter? How do I deal with my daughter? I don't want her to go. I don't want her to be a part of that kind of stuff. What do you say to her as a youth leader?
Well, what I would say is, first of all, don't just tell her no and give her no explanation. I know sometimes it's annoying to have people question why you say no, but they need that explanation because they're trying to explore these things, and tweens especially, and teens too, but tweens especially respond better when they're told why. If their parents didn't explain to them, this is why I don't want you watching this, we can talk about it all that you want to, be open to talk about it, because then they're more likely to understand and listen. And also offer them an option with you or with another set of friends, so that they're not tempted to just go straight to it because they have nothing else to do.
Right. Now, we have teenagers, 4th, 5th, 6th graders, who have emotional ups and downs. I mean, the one moment they're real happy, and the next moment they're real depressed.
Right.
When a teenager comes to you and says, nobody likes me, or I don't fit into the school, or I feel depressed, what do you say to that teenage girl, or that teenage girl?
Well, the first thing I say is, I do like you, so please don't think no one likes you. Positive reinforcement's really necessary with any kids that have self-esteem issues, even adults. Something that I try to, I don't know if enforce isn't the right word. Something I try to get across to all of my teens and teenagers that I work with is that, God made you unique for a reason, and God's got a plan for you that no one else can fulfill. So maybe it's the quiet kid that feels left out at school, because we have a few of those that I've worked with, and they think they can't do anything to help, but there have been days where there's been a new kid sitting in the room, and that quiet student goes over and sits with them and talks to them and makes an impact no one else can. And I think the important thing is pick up on what they do. If they feel unimportant, pick up on the great things that they do and what they give for God, what gifts God's given them that they use, that they might not notice.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that we can do as youth leaders and parents is making our fourth, fifth, and sixth grader, our tweenager, our friend. How do you do that? How do you make them our friend?
Well, as a youth leader, I think a lot of it is hanging out with them, spending time with them, doing things that they like to do. They may not be your favorite thing to do, but, you know, sitting and, you know, playing Wii bowling for 2 hours with them can build more, you know, I don't know if trust is the right word, but a good relationship with them because you're doing something that they want to do. It's nothing inappropriate. Don't ever do anything inappropriate with them, but you know, just time with them because their age group is so often the ones nobody wants to deal with because they're all bouncing off the walls. They often just want attention and time from adults, you know. So I would say spending time with them more than anything.
Okay, Sarah, let's speak to the parent for a moment. They have a little girl or boy at home, age 12, who says, I don't want to go back to school tomorrow. I've been picked on, I've been made fun of, I don't want to go to school. And the parent calls you up and says, my little Johnny refuses to go to school tomorrow because he's being picked on and made fun of, blah, blah, blah. Okay. What do you say to that parent? How do you counsel that parent?
Well, I would ask, you know, I mean, the situations are different, but I would definitely ask, what are they being picked on for? Like, have they shared that with you? Because depending what they're being picked on for, one, things could get resolved. Two, if people are picking on them about their faith, that is a great opportunity to sit down and talk to them about what does the Bible say about, you know, those who have faith in Christ. How do you respond to the being picked on? Because some kids' immediate reaction is lash out, others is to curl into a ball, you know, figuratively or literally. And how to, you know, to actually sit and talk to them about that. And then also just for the parent, you know, don't let the kids stay home the rest of the school year because they're having problems. You need to work through them, or they're not going to be able to grow into, you know, the strong Christian person that you're wanting them to be if they're not given backing from you as a parent. You need to let them know that you're supporting them and that, you know, no matter what happens at school, you're going to be there.
Okay, now let's speak to the youth worker. You're you work with Tweenagers, and there's other youth leaders that work with Tweenagers, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders that are listening right now. Okay. And they're supposed to minister to middle school kids. What's the best thing they can do? What's the best help you can give a youth worker about working with kids? And in other words, how can you prepare Tweenagers for the teen year? What's the best advice you can give a youth worker to prepare them for the teenage years?
I would say keep in mind they are in transition. I know that the tendency that even I have, you know, and it's why I ask people that help out to pay attention to what I do. My husband helps out a lot with our youth group and our tween group. Is don't baby them, but also don't treat them like they're an adult. You have to find that fine line. You know, you have to define what the fine line is, you know, with your group specifically. But they're not kids anymore. Some of them will want to be treated like kids and get away with whatever they want to. You know, like 3rd grade, maybe you'll get away with things. Sorry, my senior pastor just walked by. Other times people will treat them like they're 18 years old and expect them to know everything they believe and expect them to have solid answers on everything, and they don't. That's the age they're at. They're exploring and they need help. They need transitional help from youth leaders, from your parents, whoever.
I'm speaking to Sarah Madden from the Free Methodist Church in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. Sarah, it's a pleasure having you on our show today to talk about that that fourth, fifth, and sixth grade group, Tweenagers. And we appreciate your time with us I know many parents have to deal with that, and many youth workers deal with that age group. And they're wonderful kids. They're in transition. We love them, but you got to know how to work with them. And thank you so much for all your information, and I wish you well with your ministry and all that you do with reaching kids for Christ.
Well, thank you, and thank you for sitting and letting me talk here on the show today. And I hope that if anybody has any questions or anything that they'd want to ask me to clarify, that they feel free to do so. Because I don't know everything, so.
All right. Thank you so much for your time today. God bless you.
You too.
Hey, thanks for joining us today on Teen Quest Live with Mark Witt. You know, the discussion is just starting. You can visit our website and leave your comments and thoughts about this topic. Find us online at teenquest.org. That's teenquest.org. And we'll see you next time on Teen Quest Live.